I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. And of course, every week, I'm more than happy to introduce two gentlemen who need no introduction, but we love them so much, we're going to do it anyway. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of Sherdog.com, and the big homie, Ben Duffy. What's up, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing really well. It just feels great to be back to normal and talking to you guys 2 weeks in a row without interruptions, without plagues and pestilences and out-of-country trips. Just feels good to be back.
Definitely. So back on the routine, and of course that routine is anchored every week by the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers, the associate editor of Sherdog.com, also my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. Jay, how you feeling today?
It does feel good. It does feel that you get that rhythm start to going again. You get that flow state moving on. I like that. I guess I probably shouldn't tell you guys that in 2 weeks I'm going to be out of town. I won't be able to record because I'll be driving across the country on Monday at that time. But I will be sure when that happens to get two very suitable replacements because one person can't fill my shoes. And speaking of filling my shoes, stat of the week. The stat of the week is a big one. It is 319. Why the hell is it 319? Because it has been 319 UFC events since there has been a fight card that has seen all fights end by stoppage. That, of course, was the UFC Rockhold Bisping the first time they fought in Australia in 2014, at the end of 2014. So since then, 319 fight cards have come and gone since then and now. That's a lot of fights that I wouldn't remember.
It was a whole lot of decisions we sat through, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That actually predates my entrance in MMA media. Like that predates like my first podcast and everything, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even remember talking about the first Bisping and Rockhold fight on any sort of platform. So yeah, wow. Actually, yeah, that's a long time ago. All right, so if you haven't figured it out yet, my daughter is sitting on my lap, and she is so excited to talk because she hears us having conversation. So, yeah, if you hear some baby talk right there, you hear a young lady's opinions on the main event between Jamahal Hill and Thiago Santos. You know what time it is. So let's go ahead and talk about that because Jamahal Hill stopped Thiago Santos. And now we have a question about what's next to do with him. I mean, Thiago Santos, former title challenger, wasn't that long ago. He was standing across from John Jones for the light heavyweight belt. A lot of people thought he deserved the decision. And now here he is on the heels of a loss to Jamahal Hill. What do we do with Hill next, gentlemen?
I think it's time for a top 5 matchup for him. I want to see him take on either Jan Blachowicz or Glover Teixeira next.
It's not that bad of an answer because it's so simple. Because you look at the pecking order. I mean, Yuri Prochazka is going to fight either Glover Teixeira or Jan Blachowicz. That's pretty much what we've kind of figured from the news and from the reports and from the discussion so far. Yuri's not going to be having his title defense against Magomed Ankalaev. And then you look just below him, Rakic and Smith are both out for a long period of time. So that's kind of the end of it. I mean, there's nobody else. Otherwise, Jamahal Hill will have to fight down, because he knocked out the number 6 guy, which, if we do the transitive property of MMA, which always works, he's the number 6 guy at light heavyweight, which means you're going to make him fight Dominic Reyes on a 3-fight losing streak. That doesn't make sense. I'm a Joe Silva style matchmaker. I don't like winners fighting guys that are on really bad losing streaks. You're going to make him fight Volkan Ozdemir after knocking out Thiago Santos? It doesn't work. And then you go to Paul Craig. So it's a very, very small group of people for him to fight. All this to say, yes, I think the person that doesn't end up fighting Yuri Prochazka for the title between Glover and Jan, that's the one who makes sense. Because you can't go, hey, Magomed Ankalaev, we know what you've been doing. We know you're on a 9-fight win streak with some spectacular wins and some boring ones. But, do you know, how do you say Leon in Russian? It's just not going to work for him. And I think that means that's the only fight. There's no other sexy fight that makes sense. You're not going to throw him to heavyweight to goof around there.
Yeah, like that's really, it's really not too many options. I do think this is going to be a detriment to him though, because in this fight, I mean, I think I see this every time he fights. Like there are a lot of technical holes that he has that I think because there's such a huge talent gap in the light heavyweight division that I don't think are going to do him very well in the top 5 of the division. Like the way he holds his chin so high up in the air. I mean, and hands kind of low. I think he did his best to maximize that to his advantage against Santos. But we're also looking at a pretty depleted version of Santos. This is not the same guy who fought John Jones. Like this is not like he hasn't been the same since having both of his knees completely blown out in that fight. Yeah, so and Thiago Santos still found ways to out grapple him for stretches. Like
he had 6 takedowns.
Yeah,
like his career combined total was 8.
Yeah,
coming into this fight.
I mean, as far as Thiago Santos, the Division I wrestler, this was his breakout moment. And that's not a good look when your next prospects are guys who have solid grappling ability like Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira. Even Anthony Smith coming off of his injury, granted he's going to be out for some time, but that's a pretty solid grappler in his own right. Like this is not going to be friendly territory for him moving ahead with the technical deficiencies. But the fact of the matter is he's earned the spot. So it's up to him to sink or swim.
If I may, there's a really awkward logjam going on here at the top of light heavyweight, which makes me want to amend my answer to simply Jan Blachowicz. Because Glover Teixeira is very clear, and I believe him. Khabib's fighting again, but I believe Glover Teixeira when he says he actually has 1 fight left. He has 1 fight left in the tank, which makes me think that it's very possible that he'll give him a title shot. If he wins and beats Yuri, gets a revenge, goes out with a win, retires, you can have the belt back. I just wanted to get back to the top of the mountain. Do you think Glover, for his last fight, would take on some hot surgeon contender? Phrasing, work with me, guys. To take on that guy? What do you gain from that? And what happens if you lose? You get starched by a guy that's, number 6. It isn't there's just not a lot to gain from that. So it has to be Jan, because Glover, if he beats Hill, then that's the end of Hill for a while as a top contender. And obviously Glover Teixeira, even this Glover, is going to beat Hill if Thiago Santos can take down Jamahal Hill 6 times. There's no doubt in my mind there's an arm triangle choke coming within 2 rounds. And then Hill's done, Glover's out, you got nothing. Right?
Right,
baby?
Yeah, she's right. She's clapping at that one. I agree, man.
Now she's trying to set up the arm triangle on you.
Yeah, she is.
Go for
I gotta stop showing my kids moves, man. They're trying to submit me every day. I really think too, man, that perhaps that can work to the advantage of UFC matchmakers if that's the direction they want to go, because Glover Teixeira sees the same holes that me sitting on this chair, as a out of shape dad, he sees those same holes too. So he probably looks at, if you look at the top 5, that's the most winnable fight for him. So if you can talk him out of the whole, or just one last fight before calling it a career, if the UFC is able to say hey, how about one more to get to the belt, Jamahal Hill will be the guy that he says oh yeah, I can do that. So maybe they can make that fight. It may not be the wisest in terms of Jamahal Hill's ability to kind of rise to the occasion, but it can happen.
Yeah, and if they make that fight and Teixeira uses it as a springboard to one last title shot before he swings off into the sunset, Jamahal Hill is young. I mean, he's not young, but he's young by light heavyweight standards. 30 is just not old in that division, and young in terms of his fight career. He still has the air of a prospect just because he's been fighting at a high level for such a relatively short time. This wouldn't be the end. It just knock him back to the end of the line for 2 years. Strings together 3 or 4 more wins, he's right back.
Let me know if I'm out of line with this comparison here. But I get the feeling watching Jamahal Hill sometimes this is almost like a redo of what OSP was. the guy who's quite an athlete, who has been around longer than we realize, and is always still thought of as a prospect.
Okay, I see what you're driving at there, because Jamahal Hill is, as Ben and Keith Shillen say on their preview show, a plus athlete. Like he is a plus athlete when it comes to the fighters at light heavyweight, and you can tell there's a very delineation, a significant delineation between those that are like a Reyes type and then those that aren't. And yeah, I mean, I accept your comparisons. I thought of it. I'm like, different skill sets, but the blue chipper, he's going to be 36 years old and will be like the kid, you know. So I can see that.
Yeah, it's just got such a young face. I think that's part of it too. All right, fellas. Well, let's keep things pushing here, because we got a topic here that's relevant, but more of an evergreen thing. We probably could have taken this on any week, but considering this girl is not having it. You don't want Daddy to do a show today? Or you just want my hat? You want to show everybody how I'm balding? All right, here we go. Here we go.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Pride.
Here we go.
Where pride, baby.
Yep, there it is. There it is. There it is. Now look at that. Daddy's receding hairline out there for the world. Now you guys know why I wear a hat every week, except for when I just got a haircut. I know. All right, baby. So anyway, there have been a lot of bizarre injuries going on. Well, not necessarily bizarre, but just kind of gruesome and just not really cool to look at. that have kind of been in the forefront lately. So this week alone, we had Sam Alvey's jaw looking like it was about to fall off. Anthony Pettis broke both hands. Vicente Luque, possible hand injury there. We had Anthony Smith rolling his ankle over last week. Tom Aspinall's knee. Brian Ortega's shoulder. Is there a reason why you think these nasty in-cage injuries seem to be on the rise?
Well, there are a couple different factors at play here. One, I think this is a kind of tide that will ebb and flow, and we'll get a streak of kind of weird, freaky injuries that'll seem like an epidemic, and we just have to make sure not to fall victim to recency bias. But I am on board with the idea that we've had more injuries in highly visible, high-level fights in, the past 6 months than in most 6-month spans. Some of them are the fault of matchmaking. Sam Alvey got his jaw broke because he shouldn't be fighting UFC fighters anymore. Boom. Like, his head movement isn't there, his defense isn't there, and he's getting plunked in the face by guys he shouldn't be fighting. As far as like bone injuries, like Pettis breaking his hands, that's just stuff that's going to happen. But soft tissue injuries, things like Tom Aspinall's knee, Brian Ortega's shoulder, I'm inclined to blame UFC pacing. There's so much space between fights. Things get pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Fighters get cold again after warming up. Like, that's when you're going to see like tendons and ligaments start to snap in situations that it doesn't seem they should. Like if someone's getting knee barred, and they tear a hamstring or they tear ligaments, you can understand why. Force is being applied. When somebody's fighting off an armbar and suddenly his shoulder comes out, or somebody just comes out and seconds into a fight, his patellar tendon snaps and his quad like rolls up like a curtain in an old cartoon, that's freakish. That's kind of my take.
And I mean, there are always injuries. There always will be injuries. And the point that you make about it does come in waves, because all of these things come in waves. There will be suddenly multiple technical decisions across multiple promotions out of nowhere. Like, what the heck? And people are like, oh, I didn't know that rule. And then 3 of them will happen. And then it will disappear for a stretch.
Can I throw in an example real quick?
Please.
I think the year was 2019 that like the first 10 or 11 UFC fighters to miss weight all won their fights. And people, myself included, kind of got up in arms. Well, you see what an advantage it is, and of course things regressed to the mean. It was just a blip. And if it had happened in the middle of a year rather than the start of a calendar year, we probably wouldn't have noticed. But yeah,
I think this year, if I remember correctly, fighters that miss weight lose like 2/3 their fights. I think that's in the UFC. I think that's the way the trend is going. But again, it does all gravitate towards 500 at the end of the day. Yeah. There's a couple things, because bone injuries, of course, you break your hand, you're bunching. That's just, it will happen. Anthony Pettis breaking both of them. That was interesting to me when I found out that both of them went in that one fight. Also, the fact that he had just fought Stevie Ray in a tooth and nail fight where his rib popped out when he got tapped with a body triangle and or modified twister by Stevie Ray. But just six weeks between hard fights is kind of a tough thing. Some states actually will issue, I think Nevada is one of them, will issue a suspension for 30 days or 45 days for a hard fight. It's written on the commission document. It's automatic suspension for a hard fight, because they want the fighters to be able to recover the way they are, and suspension technically means certain kinds of training. I mean, obviously you can't really the commissioner's not going to be going to the gym and like, you can't spar. But in theory, that's what they're trying to protect. So there won't be the iron sharpens iron, Miletich style, they beat the crap out of each other, hard sparring, and then go and then come back. It's hard spar on Monday and beat up on Jens Pulver and Tim Sylvia. Anyway, there's a culture of going and never stopping and never taking breaks that seems to be taking prevalence in the I'm always ready mentality is amazing, but it has major drawbacks, because you shouldn't be always ready. Because if you're always ready, it means you're not resting and recovering the way theoretically you should be doing. Now, yes, I'm just a goofball media member, but I'm also a guy who pays attention, has trained for many years in the past, and knows a couple things.
You're also a licensed ref and judge. So.
Also a trained ref and judge. But the point stands that it's part of its culture. Part of it is matchmaking. Part of it is also, especially in the UFC level, the requirement to have 42 UFC cards with 13 fights on them. And the fact that even though they have a roster of 600 fighters, you're going to see the same fighters going. Angela Hill fighting Lupe Godinez, jumping up 2 months to say we can fill this spot because we're here and that's what we'd like to do. That makes me go, okay, sure, but you're going to hurt yourself. And I'm no doctor, but you're going to hurt yourself because people are hurting themselves. And I'm curious what a current training semi-professional has to think about this too, Mr. Walker.
I think you guys are hitting a lot of points here. I mean, the thing is, this is the combination of many different factors, one being that UFC schedule that is so demanding and outside of the UFC, obviously, because Anthony Pettis was fighting in PFL, but there's just so much more MMA going on that we're going to see more injuries, period. Like, this is a sport that by the nature of it, people are going to get hurt. Whether it be in training or on competition day, people are not going to walk out the same as they came into the building. Like, that's just a fact of what combat sports have to offer. So if you increase the number of fights going on, of course, you're going to increase the number of injuries. And this is across the board in all promotions. Like, we're just seeing more action taking place. And another thing to keep in mind too, the earlier days of MMA, we kind of got like the cast-offs of the athletic world. We got the guys who were sort of the rejects of college wrestling. We got the guys who were on the fringes of, Brazilian jiu-jitsu and on the fringe of karate and whatnot.
Yeah, they were a 10th degree black belt and no gun fu. You know what? No, that's not
exactly. Or they were guys who washed out of boxing, and found and picked up some takedown defense, and now they're MMA fighters. Like, we were kind of with the leftover pool of athletes, but we're seeing higher caliber athletes coming in to compete, which means their bodies are going to generate more force, which means more people are going to get hurt in more interesting ways. So there's a whole lot going on to it, including the matchmaking that Ben's talking about. So we'll just look at some of the names on this list: Sam Alvey, Anthony Pettis, Vicente Luque, Anthony Smith, Brian Ortega. Really, if you look at some of his more recent work, these are guys who have taken a lot of damage over pretty long careers for the most part. So you'd start expecting to see bodies start breaking down. I mean, Anthony Pettis, in my opinion, I've said this on the show before, I'm sure, like, legendary for toughness, like easily one of the just pure toughest guys who's ever fought. It was at UFC 229, I believe. He broke his hand against Tony Ferguson. And and the fight was stopped by his corner to protect him. Like, this is a guy, and then a guy who took a sustained 25-minute beating from RDA. Like, you have these guys who are willing to just throw themselves on the line like this, and at some point something's going to break, something's going to pop, something's going to snap, something's going to twist, something's going to fall apart. And if we're lucky or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, a TV camera happens to be there pointed at the action when the injury takes place. So we've just seen it happen a little more frequently. That's all.
And it seems, this is an observation. This may not be fact. This may be anecdotal. That there is a overwhelming need by fighters to not disappoint the UFC by pulling out of fights. That there are fighters who will go into fights injured. I believe, I mean, there always have been, always. I mean, Tito Ortiz broke his skull, right, guys? No, anyway, there will always be fighters that will push it and be like, I shouldn't be fighting right now, but I'm going to. But it seems, and maybe this is also because there are more fights and more fighters, that there are fighters just going, yeah, we're going to do it anyway. Like, Ariane Lipski, there were jokes about well, she just shouldn't have gone back to the buffet or whatever jokes that people were making. Well, she had severe COVID during her training that made her stop training and made her get lung medication to be able to recover. And they still pushed, they being the team and whoever's working with her, still said she's good to go and fight, and then missed weight by several pounds, looks in terrible shape, and is whatever. So there's, and you can think of it for fighters to come in with nagging injuries. Oh man, my knee was hurt in camp, but I thought I could keep it together. Cortisone will be okay, and then it goes in the fight.
Yeah.
And you see the desire for the fighters, or the need for the fighters to say, I have to go out there. And of course they have to go out there because they're going to get, it's the only way they get paid.
Exactly.
But you're losing half of your purse going out injured. So are you actually making the right decision? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I just have observations.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm media, guys. Remember,
Jay, you're preaching to the choir right now, because when you look at the show win system for pay, you look at just the pay scale in general, especially now as we have more and more contender series signings. Was last week, like everybody who walked in the building got a contract.
To be fair, they earned it, but
they earned it. Yeah, but I mean, they were giving out contracts in the audience, like they you know, when you're peaking.
If you look under your seat right now, said Oprah, just all of you will find a contract for 10 and 10.
Like, you're a fighter, you're a fighter, you're a fighter. Like, that's simply what's going on right now, because it's cheaper talent. Yes. So if you're paying people cheaper margins, and you incentivize them for showing up injured by, hey, you get double your pay if you pull off this miracle win, you're gonna have more people taking these chances that they probably shouldn't. Is it plausible that say Sam Alvey stepped in there with a jaw that was compromised from a hard sparring session 2 weeks before the fight? Very possible. And he just decided, hey, I'm just going to do this anyway because I need that money. Yeah. It's very possible that happened. So we're going to keep seeing this. If the system, the way it is now, continues, this is the norm. All right. And maybe we'll get to where Ben was talking about how like the things kind of go back to the mean at some point. They start scaling back toward the average. Maybe that is the case and we don't see it on camera, but best believe these injuries are still happening, whether we realize them on the broadcast or not. Yeah. So, all right, fellas, time for me to break out the clock here, because it is time for quick hits. This is where we have, Scott, what time scale are we feeling today? Do you want to do? I like 10 seconds. I like the 10 seconds that we did last week, because it was just spicy. It was like straight to the point and spicy. So
except the last question deserves a
last question, the clock goes off.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay.
Or we'll put it on a minute, something like that. Yeah. And I'll just ignore it if we keep talking.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So Jay, I'm gonna begin with you.
Yo.
Muhammad Usman, Julianna Mindler, they're now tough champions.
Sure.
If you think they can go far, say so. But which one do you think goes the furthest?
When Brian Battle is the previous winner of Tough on a win streak going down to another division, is on the prelims, they're not going anywhere. The system is rigged against them.
All right. I like you. We're blaming the system this week. That is the theme. I like it.
It's the title is blaming on the system.
Oh, there's a title here. There's definitely a title here.
Yeah.
All right, Ben, you're up next. What do you think of Chris Tognoni polling the judges for the Silva submission over Edgar?
I feel as though this question should also have gone to Jay, since I only learned from him that is proper procedure. But either way, I like it because you're asking three people that were definitely watching closely what was happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're using the resources that are provided. Like that sounds, even if that wasn't in the rule book, well, that just makes all the sense in the world. That's just
right, because you've got three people who by definition have different angles.
Yep.
So if you're looking for a ghost tap, who better to ask?
And who better be paying attention.
Exactly.
Anyway, so
and that's the fascinating thing about it. It's not the rules, if any, the rules I've read. I learned about this in the ABC course when I think it was Blake Rice was telling us about this, about one of the options and possibilities is to poll the judges. It's extremely rare and unusual, but it makes sense in certain situations, depending on if replay is available or not, or to be able to assess a certain situation. And that is a proper procedure that was followed by Chris Tognoni. So well done, Chris Tognoni. That is a gold star performance right there. And got a question for you.
Yes, please.
Because I know you can't answer. You can't ask your own question. Co-main event: Geoff Neal knocks out Vicente Luque. Was the performance by Neal a showcase of how good he is, or is it a side effect of the damage that Luque has been taking as of late?
I think it's a bit of both. Geoff Neal has shown himself to be quite the technician when provided the proper canvases. This version of Vicente Luque provides that proper canvas. So I think we got them both.
I like it.
All right, fellas, let's see. Let me change the clock over to the minute that I'm probably just going to ignore here because we might have more to say about this. We may not. We shall see. So let's go ahead and ask that question. Ben, Jake, how will you remember the legendary career of one Sam Alvey? Oh, my goodness, I forgot there's prep time. So we're just going to keep talking, and then the bell will ring.
I wasn't sure if you were going to say it, so just for that, I'm happy.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Ben,
of course.
I want your thoughts first, Ben.
Well, it's easy to make jokes in the situation in which he's now mired, this now record-breaking winless streak. But when you ask me how I'll remember his career, the bottom line is I will remember his career. And how many guys can you say that about that never really broke into the top 10? He's up there with kind of your Clay Guida types that they carved out because of their personality, their look, their style of fighting, a niche as a character and a memorable fighter and a career fighter in the UFC. Good on Sam. I heard that beep. I thought maybe my time was up. No, like what we're seeing now is not Sam Alvey. Like, it's almost sad to see him smiling now, like all face busted up with his kids in the front row at the Apex. But yeah, like he was a really fun fighter for a long time.
Hey, before you say something, let me just jump in real quick because we're talking about his kids being there. I forget who said this on Twitter, but it said if you're on a record losing streak and you bring your kids to the fight and you get knocked out, it's like that's your fault. Like you got to know better than that. But Jay, man, what do you think of the career of Sam Alvey?
Duffy, I mean, he hit that specific point in the head. I will remember it. There are a lot of people that trash on Sam Alvey. I genuinely, this is maybe more personal or whatever. I genuinely like Sam Alvey. I've had multiple interactions with him as media and as guys, as not quite a fan, but I was working for Sherdog at the time. But I had multiple interactions with him, and he has been nothing but not just cordial, but welcoming and interested and engaged and remembers a past conversation. So it's a guy who people riff on, you know, the big smile and the gimmick, whatever. He's a genuine guy. Like if he's smiling and his nickname is Smiling, it's not because he was trying to drum up business and be like, well, I have pearly whites, so I'm going to do it. No, it's because this guy is a happy guy. He has a happy family that grows every time I see them. And not just because they're getting older, because there are more of them, which I enjoyed that. I wrote in the Sherdog play-by-play, it hurt my heart to hear it, but I heard it. And even if you listen back and don't hear it, I will take it to my grave. I heard the second knockdown or his kids cry out. I heard a couple little voices go, Dad. And that stuck with me in a way that viscerally hit me more than most fights have, more than Eddie's wife screaming for him and more than Tyron Woodley's mom, anything like that. It was a touching painfully touching moment. But the guy has had a career. Like, even if you can look at all the names and go, yeah, well, it was this time and that time. Well, this guy's beaten Rashad Evans. This guy's beaten Nate Marquardt. This guy's beaten Gerald Mearshart. This guy's beaten Mutanch Fajeda. He's not just, just a nobody. He beat Carl Amasu. He beat the other Guida that we talked about, the slapping one. He's got tons of other names and a very distinct style if we want to talk about his fight career. So I kind of feel for the guy that he gets dumped on so much because of his longevity and the UFC letting him finish his contract with the UFC. I think he deserved better because he is probably my truest company man example I can think of right now. And yes, he has personal opinions and tough thoughts and sentiments, but I look past that and go, yeah, he was a company guy, but he was a good guy.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. Like, this is someone who will be remembered, and that's a lot more than you can say about 99.9% of the people that have competed in this sport. I'll definitely remember the smile, of course. He's got the wife that was on, what was it, like America's Next Top Model. Yeah. So like, there were things about him that kind of stood out already, and his wife was in his corner the whole time. So you see the supportive family, the genuine smile. Like, he seemed like a good guy. I never got to interact with him, but he always was a fan favorite. It's a guy who, partly because of the nickname and, the backstory with his wife, but he was someone who everybody paid attention to. And even if that lands you as like a trivia question in the future of, and that's it, like, well, that's more than a lot of people can say that they've carved out of their career. So I'm glad to see him getting his respect in some way, shape, or form, even if it is, partly at his expense with some jokes, whatever. But so be it. You go up there and you lose that many times in a row on an international platform. That's sort of the price of it. But it's all good, man. Sam Alvey will be remembered as an action fighter, a guy who pulled out some wins that he probably shouldn't have, and we were entertained. So that's kind of, at the end of the day, all we really can ask for of some fighters, especially ones who know they aren't going to win the title.
And the guy fought 24 times. He was in the UFC 8 years, not even 8 years, averaging 3 fights a year.
Yeah.
That's not something that happens.
With the amount of hits that he absorbs, that's a lot. Yeah. Very demanding.
I mean, how many fights did he have after, but on strict competitive merits, he should have been cut? 6? Yeah, like, he probably should have been cut before the tie with Da Jung. So how much money did he make in those 6 fights, even without a single win bonus? Like, think about that and what that does for his family. And when you think about that, fuck my opinion. Yeah. Like, go get your loot.
Yeah.
He completed the Joseph Benavidez hat trick because he is married to someone who is accomplished, obviously deeply in love with him, and taller. Go Sam Alvey. Despite the fact that Sam Alvey is best associated with that kind of creepy like smile, the moment that made me a fan, he wasn't because he, of course, is a product of which season of The Ultimate Fighter? Was it 13? No, 16,
11 or something.
16.
No, 16. Thank you.
16.
I was way
That's
off.
Of course the Julian Lane Let Me Bang Bro season. I have watched the Julian Lane Let Me Bang Bro clip, like that 4-minute clip, more times than like the Zapruder film of the Kennedy assassination has been watched. And my favorite low-key moment of that is Sam Alvey in the background, just looking on, like wishing for death. He is not smiling. He's like like just dying inwardly of embarrassment at the drunken ranting of Julian Lane. It's amazing. If you're watching this right now, you owe it to yourself. The clip is all over YouTube. Go rewatch the Let Me Bang Bro scene and just watch for that freeze frame of the man behind the grassy knoll, the little puff of smoke that is Sam Alvey questioning all his life choices in that moment.
But you know what, Ben? I'm so glad you brought up that moment and Tough because like Julian Lane, for instance, is a great example of how you're remembered in the sport. Yeah. Julian Lane, for whatever he accomplishes, unless he just suddenly becomes this world beater who goes on and styles on multiple divisions and has 3 belts over his shoulder in the UFC, which we know ain't going to happen. Unless he does something like that, he always will be the Let Me Bang Bro guy. He always will be that guy. And what a goofy and even more embarrassing way to be remembered. for like this drunken moment of stupidity, but Sam Alvey being remembered for just going out there and fighting.
Yeah,
you know, and having a big smile and, you know, and a good looking wife. I would much rather have that legacy. And while you're making, you know, much more money than you would have made considering your competitive status if you were fighting in Titan or you were fighting anywhere else in the world. Like Sam Alvey won. Like he won the game.
Yeah. Yeah, he did across the board. Happy family, happy life. He did what he seriously like. You could, I mean, this is going to sound grim, but you could put this on his tombstone. He did what he loved. I mean,
yeah,
he loved to fight and he did it. He has the wife and the family and the money and the everything that he wants. And he kept smiling.
The six kids are testament to that.
Hell yeah, man. Good for him. Like, seriously, a lot of people have been trashing on Sam. Good for him, man.
Yeah.
He did the damn thing.
Yeah, he won. Like, that's like he has a record losing streak on his commission record.
Yeah,
but this man won at life.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So hats off to Sam Alvey on a good career. All right, fellas, we're gonna move things along here to the greatest titled segment in all of media history. I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons, where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not over the course of the past week. Ben, I want to start with you this week. What is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment?
I'm trying to peel the layers of actual surprise and ironic non-surprise off of this story, like disassembling an onion, because it only came up within, I think, the last 12 hours. But UFC middleweight contender, possible light heavyweight contender, Paulo Costa announced this week that he is parting ways with his longtime manager, Waleed Ismail, and will now be represented in negotiations by his girlfriend, Tamara Alves. I love it when I can get amped for real.
Yeah.
The comedian once told me that laughter is the sound of surprise, and I just surprised the fuck out of Ant Walker.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. So obviously we chat before we start recording. So we'll give you the backstory. When we were like saying, okay, what we're going to use for our segment this week, if the story is good enough, we try to hide it from the others.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't know it already, if we say, oh, that thing that, like, so they say, Ben's like, oh, I'm going to talk about Paulo Costa. I see Jay has a little snicker, and I have no idea what's going on because I haven't checked any news yet. And so then I'm like, yeah, you know what? Don't tell me. I won't be surprised on the show. That is the absolute last thing I thought you were going to say when you said that he parted ways with Waleed. I thought you were going to say like, oh, like now he's part of Dominance. Or like, you know, I don't, or maybe he trains at ATT now. So so what's his name is managing him or something. What's the guy's name again? ATT, the manager and owner.
Who, Silveira?
No, not Silveira.
No, the owner.
Dan
Lambert.
Dan Lambert,
Lambert, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, maybe Dan Lambert's manager. I'm thinking I'm going to hear a name that I know, and then we say, oh man, Ali is really expanding his roster or something like that. But no, it's his girlfriend. No. So he was wrong. He should have got Mike Perry's girlfriend.
Well, this is what I was going to say, and like, bear with me for a second. This isn't the Mike Perry story. And it's understandable that your mind would go straight there because Costa has a history of kind of impulsive, wild, and ill-advised behavior. But this isn't Mike Perry throwing his training to literally his girlfriend of the month. I mean, he and Tamara Alves have been together for almost a decade. She's been by his side very much like Sam Alvey's wife. She's all over his IG. She's visible when he fights if she can be there as just a supportive long-term partner. I mean, she's not a professional sports manager, but she is an entrepreneur. Like, she was a fitness model like when they met and has kind of expanded into different avenues of business. So it's not a completely left field thing. And I'm sure the UFC is like, oh, we'll take that. Sure. Thank you. But it isn't a Mike Perry moment. It's interesting that Waleed has lost two of his bigger clients in the last month or two. I mean, Davis and Figueiredo very publicly split from Ismail when the UFC decided to put together an interim flyweight title. He just felt his best interests were not being represented, and he and Waleed bashed the living shit out of each other on the way out the door. Costa's not doing that. He's been very cordial. I mean, maybe he just hadn't broken into that wine yet, because we know when the wine hit him that he becomes a different man, But yeah, I was surprised. I was not surprised. I'm not sure whether to be happy for him or not. He's fighting like in 2 weeks against Luke Rockhold. And if he lays an egg against Rockhold, his UFC career is kind of on life support for as accomplished a guy as he is and was so fairly recently. So I don't know if we'll look back on this as just the desperate, like, paddling water of a drowning man, or just an actual turning over of the leaf. But yeah, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons.
Well, at least, I mean, I'm glad you gave a little more backstory about the girlfriend, because at least it's someone who knows business. And that's better than
knows him.
And knows him.
Knows him. Yeah,
it's almost surprising that he's been in a stable relationship for a decade.
I just assume like this is a single guy out there, just drinking wine and too much access to Twitter. Like that's what I envision Paulo Costa outside of training. So
Jay knows how tough it is for Paulo probably to keep the ladies off him with them Hawaiian shirts that he puts on.
Oh, yeah. They're beautiful, man.
Like, yeah,
they do it.
All right. Well, Jay, I think it's time for you to share your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment of the week.
Mine isn't sexy, but is also a behind the scenes thing. This past week, I believe it started from Eric Albarracin, Fight Ready, of course, works with Cejudo, has ridiculous glasses that he needs to stop wearing because nobody cares. Anyway, there was some talk about Charles Oliveira and his upcoming fight with Islam Makhachev at UFC 280 in Abu Dhabi in October. And the concerns were, yeah, but how can Oliveira handle Makhachev's wrestling when he gets him down and isn't just falling victim to an offensive guard that Oliveira can do? Oliveira hits sweeps and stuff. And so Diego Lima, his coach from Shooter Box, obviously, came out and said, we have a secret weapon. We've had a secret weapon for 3 years now. So you guys don't know what you're talking about, because we have a guy. And it's an Iranian wrestler named Ali Reza. That's at least his fight name. It's like Ali Reza Noai or something from Iran. He's like 36 years old. He's fine. Like, he's an Iranian wrestler. I don't know his wrestling accolades. I don't believe he has like Olympic experience or any of the things that, you look forward to go, oh man, this is the guy. From all my knowledge, it's an Iranian wrestler who went into MMA. He's fought in MMA. I think he's like 7-2. I think the only fight I remember seeing of his was in Future FC in Brazil, and he got put all the way to sleep. So that's my only impression of him on an MMA stage, is watching him realize, hey, I probably should be, and that's the end of it. So that's the secret weapon, and that's what's going to keep Oliveira out of danger from Islam Makhachev. It's a 5'8" Iranian wrestler with accolades that who knows what they are. And Oliveira is truly prepared for the wrestling. So I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. This was Diego Lima and Shooter Box's Justin McCulley raised the mascot, because you're like,
I literally was thinking of the beekeeper mask,
because you're like, oh my gosh, you're gonna have it. We got this wrestler. You have no idea. We're gonna tell him who he is now, and it's this guy. And you're like, the hell is that guy? So I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. They thought that. Please, I'm just finishing. They thought that would land, and it didn't. So go ahead, please take it from here.
Well, I just wanted to interject that I thought it was funny that Lima referred to him multiple times as a top Iranian wrestler without naming him. It just made me think of the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, what wrestler? Top wrestlers. And I just picture Ali Reza, like, pushing a crate in the huge like warehouse or something.
And we had to make sure when publishing this article that we had to include top in quotes, because it was not Sherdog saying he was a top wrestler of sorts. This was the words of the coach saying he's a top wrestler. And upon researching this gentleman, top what? Top. I can't think of any jokes here. And come on, give me a joke.
I mean, I was just thinking, like, went to the top Iranian high school and just, found the co-captain of the team because the captain was busy. I don't know. Like, yeah, maybe I don't know. That's hilarious. That's actually pretty funny. But last laugh will be directed at us if that guy actually ends up being like a secret weapon in camp. Like, he's So we'll see. We'll see. So like, I'll hold back my laughter. All right. So I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcon's moment. It's kind of a two-part thing because I was halfway expecting to hear an announcement soon that Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler were going to be booked together, because there'd been some crosstalk, and that's a fight that obviously the UFC is fully behind trying to promote Michael Chandler. They're on similar trajectories as far as their recent wins and losses. So I'm like, that'd be a good time to throw them together. A great action fight will make a fantastic pay-per-view headliner. But when Michael Chandler was announced to fight Dustin Poirier, it looks like they're making that for Madison Square Garden, I think in October or something like that.
Just thinking about it. We don't know. We still don't know.
Yeah, it's not official, but once that became a thing that was out there, I was like, I wonder what's next for Conor. And that question was answered on like Collider, which our buddy Dennis, who's been on the show
Dennis,
before, he he didn't write the article. I checked. I was like, this looks like a Dennis article, but no, it wasn't a Dennis article. Conor McGregor's next move is not actually in the cage or the ring. It's going to be on the big screen. He is starring, and I've seen multiple headlines saying starring or co-starring. So this is probably going to be a prominent role alongside Jake Gyllenhaal for the remake of Roadhouse. So take what you want from that. Roadhouse, a classic Patrick Swayze movie. That guy got his throat ripped out. That was pretty dope. So I don't know what part Conor's going to play. I don't know where, but he's going to be in a movie, and probably not going to be fighting anytime soon if you were looking forward to it. So
he's going to be getting his throat ripped out.
You think he's just going to get the throat ripped out and then it's going to be off, and then he's off the set?
Well, no, he's going to be the character brought in, the heavy. I don't know this for a fact, but I can tell, bringing a martial artist to act as the big fighter and make him a star, he's going to be the martial artist. Who's that guy? He's going to challenge him. Except for, there's one last thing, and you didn't mention this. Jake Gyllenhaal will apparently be playing a former UFC fighter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense. Like, if they're going to update Roadhouse, because what was Patrick Swayze's backstory in that? He was just like some elite bouncer or something, right?
Right?
Yeah, it was like some bouncer that was sought after. That's the only thing I remember about his.
I mean, you saw him doing like some Tai Chi type poses and stretches and stuff, but his actual fighting background, I mean, it involved pool cues. So yeah, you're the Krav guy. Like, I think it was just ripping throats out and using any available object. That's definitely up my alley a lot more. But I would imagine if you're going to do a modern remake of that, the world of martial arts has changed drastically since Roadhouse came out, and Roadhouse was like very much like this style of fighting that people thought fighting was before MMA was a thing, where high kicks and all sorts of twirly stuff, and it was more acrobatic and dance like than anything else, and heavily choreographed. So if you're going to update that, you update the backstory of the bouncer, who's the main character, into someone who's a mixed martial artist, because that encompasses all the ranges of combat that you're going to show in the movie, and then it has real world fight experience. It's like the new version of, this guy was a former Navy SEAL or something like that when you give the character's backstory. So that makes all the sense in the world that Jake Gyllenhaal's character will be a former UFC fighter. And I do remember the article specifically saying former UFC fighter.
Yes.
And not, MMA fighter.
Right. So Conor could be a rival. Oh gosh, I didn't think of that angle. He could be another former UFC fighter named Charlie. Yeah, I'm trying to think I'm trying to think of a C name. Conrad
McDonald or something. I don't know. Like, I
like Jimmy Reno was such a. If that's the guy who I remember, was the guy who got his shirt ripped out. That was just a fairly, like, that was a half of the way the movie comes in, and Ben Gazzara's character brings in the heavy. So I don't know what Conor, unless Conor's going to be like a big bumbling guy in the overalls, then I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I imagine this is going to look totally different than what we saw in the original movie.
And that means they're going to take it seriously, and it's going to suck. Like, part of Roadhouse's charm was that that Sam Elliott cut and he bursts out laughing. That's just what's happening.
It was hokey. It was aware of what it was. Yes. If they bring in like 5'8" Conor McGregor as their out of town heavy,
is gonna be angry the whole time, and like it just like I mean, like you got like oh crap, a Terry Funk, you know, guys like Terry Funk in there, you're like, oh, that's kind of fun, and then like this is going to be like a dark and brooding, and he'll be sitting there, and whoever his version of Kelly Lynch is going to be like, no, don't go out there, don't bounce tonight, and he'll be like, I have to. You know it's you know what you can.
It's like this job means everything to me.
Exactly.
Like, how much you want to bet that the top shelf liquor in the bar is going to be proper 12?
Oh, guaranteed.
Like guaranteed, there's going to be a scene
God.
where someone sits at the bar and asks for a proper 12 on the rocks.
That's yep. And it might even be Connor, his character. He might even ask
Connor. If it's Connor, I'm throwing popcorn at the screen.
Dude, I mean,
actually, I'm watching it in your own house. I'm just throwing popcorn like on the floor of my own living room.
I'll clean it up later. I don't care.
Like butter streaks down my big screen. And just like, I don't give up.
If this thing gets better than 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, I'll eat the hat that I'm not wearing. Just saying. Roadhouse did better than 20%. So
yeah, this is probably really gonna suck. Like, but I'm honestly not surprised by this. And I was surprised about that his next move wasn't a fight move, but him moving into Hollywood movies and stuff isn't that much of a shock. Like, it wasn't that long ago he was in one of the Call of Duty games. I forget which one that he was in. And you, I mean, as he is become like a pop culture figure, these are the sort of things that you'd expect someone to take advantage of. Like, if he's not fighting anyway, well, might as well just do a movie and make some money and get a little more famous, or, you know, take advantage of those like bucket list things that you would have is if just like a fan of action movies, if the opportunity is presented.
So 2 last things before we probably sketch on. First of all, I didn't know until right now this movie is being released on Amazon Prime. It's not a theatrical release. It's not anything like that. It's going to be it comes out whenever it comes out. And the second most important thing, I got you a love interest / sidekick. And who would play the main character's female femme fatale / fighter girlfriend type that has connections to Roadhouse?
Oh, I don't even remember who starred in that movie.
No.
I just knew it wasn't
you're
Maggie Gyllenhaal. Because
you're missing. Oh God, no,
sister.
That's what I'm saying. Ronda Rousey.
Oh,
remember she was attached to the old one with Nick Cassavetes and they jumped it.
That's right.
What if she slides in?
Oh man. Oh, the movie's really gonna
outside
suck.
Garbage.
Oh, that's. I mean, that.
I don't think she's. I think they already released the cast on it, and I'm just having fun.
Okay, yeah, because that sounds awful.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Remember Expendables 3? How great of an actor she was.
Jesus Christ, that was terrible.
Mean, after the like kind of runaway international success of Gina Carano in that Violent Little House on the Prairie movie she did with Cowboy, I'm surprised that she wasn't like their first call.
Gina Carano at least had, what was it, Haywire? That actually was.
Dude, that was an awesome movie.
That was actually pretty dope.
No joke.
Was it? I skipped it on principle. I'll throw it in the queue.
It actually was all right. And then she was dope in Mandalorian until she went on her Nazi Twitter rants or whatever. But anyway, yeah, so interesting. Wow, we talked about that a lot longer than I anticipated, but you know,
we talked about exactly as long as we needed to.
Yeah, we needed to get that out of our system.
Because now what we're going to talk about, Bellator?
I know, right? I mean,
after all
they do have a fight coming up.
I
this
guess
Friday. Neiman Gracie, and Goiti Yamauchi. Yes. Wow, I'm terrible at this pronunciation thing. But anyway, 2 submission specialists in a Bellator main event. Does it end by submission?
No. Neither of these guys has ever been finished. And it's not starting now.
Right. Do you remember when Gunnar Nelson fought Damian Maia? And there was no time where I'm like, Nelson's going to get finished. But at every time I was like, yeah, Maia's got this by whatever. He can just like, it was the quintessential, there's levels to this fight where, you know, Nelson's an incredible grappler in his own right, but Maia was just one step above him every step of the way. Anytime that Nelson would try and escape, Maia would be able to follow him and counter that. I see it like that. Yeah. I see it's 5 rounds of that. So
yeah. Well, it looked like a purple belt or a brown belt, like grappling with his coach.
Yeah.
And that's not meant to denigrate Nelson, a decorated, like, you know, like tournament winning black belt in his own right, but that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
I'm mostly interested to see if Goiti Yamauchi can, I mean, he already has the record for the most submission wins in Bellator history. You know, Gracie is tied for second, but he could set a record by being the first ever Bellator fighter to miss weight in 3 weight classes. That's what I'm really tuning in for.
Oh man, it's scratching my stat itch right there.
Dude, I wrote a by the numbers for it last night. I'm full up.
Oh man. All right, anything on this card outside of the main event that you're looking forward to?
You know, we were talking about Paulo Costa and how he had that really excellent moment and then a plummet, a free fall. And then if he loses the rock hold, it's the real big thing. Limele McFarland, man. Limele she's at that precipice right now. When she lost, and let's be clear, she lost. There was, I don't know if I think you actually were covering that fight. But it was a 29-28 Kish fight. Like the Kish won the fight. When that happened after her losing the title and taking a long time off, she's fighting Bruna Ellen. If she doesn't get past Bruna Ellen, that's it. No more Hawaii shows for her. No more big walkouts or drama. You're not sitting on the booth talking. This is it. And that's crazy because she's 32. She's, you know, marketable, I guess is the word people like to use. She's still talented, but so whatever happened, the Kish fight was not an aberration. I don't think. Like Kish was better, and that was very unexpected. So Bruna Ellen managed to out hustle her, which she can awkwardly do sometimes. So she beat Vida Ortega, and that was not an accident. That I'm really curious to see because one loss and you're like maybe on the prelims, and that's crazy from being a top ranked flyweight to I'm not ranked anymore. Like that.
2020 hindsight, they should have created a strawweight division for her 5 years ago.
Yes.
And she should have been reigning over that until now.
And she would have been.
Yeah.
And what is your big fight? You looking forward to Austin Vanderford?
Austin Vanderford and Aaron Jeffrey like that.
I like Aaron Jeffrey, man.
I like Aaron Jeffrey a lot. It's interesting matchmaking here. Austin Vanderford is his first fight back after losing to Gegard Mousasi for the middleweight title, and Aaron Jeffrey's only been in Bellator for like one fight. So it almost seems like too much too soon for Jeffrey, or this is trying to get Vanderford back on the right track here.
I can't answer that. Just to interject for you, Vanderford was supposed to fight Anthony Adams. He was supposed to fight Sugarfoot.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
The guy who beat Murchas Eliav, the guy nobody thought would beat the Myrtleizer, and he beat him. So he was supposed to. So Aaron Jeffrey's coming in on short notice. To fight Vanderford.
Well, that's a great opportunity for Jeffrey. I mean, it's a guy who's kind of toiled around, like he's been on the fringes of the big promotions for a while, and I'd like to see what he can do in that short notice spot. So,
So no love for Deanna Bennett, Justin Kish. Which I just have to say, Deanna Bennett, Justin Kish is buried on the prelims. Justin Kish just beat Limele McFarland. And Deanna Bennett just beat, timeout. Deanna Bennett just beat Justine Kish. They're fighting again? This is news to me as of right now. Unless there's an error, Deanna Bennett beat Kish on the scorecards because everybody was like, oh man, Kish could be the thing. And then she got beat by Deanna Bennett. They're fighting again this weekend. The hell is that?
I guess they don't believe the first time, so we got to run it back.
I didn't mean,
and I don't see any information about replacement fighters or anything. No. So this wasn't like a last minute thing put together. And
it was a clear, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a very clear Bennett fight. So I didn't mean to totally sidetrack us, but I just noticed that. I didn't know that until right now that what the heck is going on there. And also that it's buried on the prelims under Lima, which is
I can kind of understand that because Kish's fight with McFarland was kind of dreadful until like a wild last few minutes, and Bennett's fights are always a little grindy. I really need to update her Fight Finder entry because she is listed as belonging to a team that hasn't existed in 8 years. So I got to get with that. The pit elevated is the pit burned and crashed.
Yeah. The pit elevated. It's like it's not a pit anymore if it's elevated.
That's right. You know, if you take it to Utah, so it's elevated in comparison to sea level, but it's sunken in relation to, like, you know, the Wasatch Mountains.
Too complicated. Too complicated.
Much too complicated.
It's like,
I'm going to
it's not the big anymore.
I'm going to stick with my Gamma reference and be good with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's say before this segment crashes and burns any further, let's move on to our sentence about PFL. So we've got welterweight and heavyweight playoffs. The finals will be decided after these matches on Saturday. So what do we see as the final for welterweight? We got Rory McDonald versus Magomed Umalabditov, and close enough. And Sabadu Sai, I love watching that guy fight, versus Carlos Leal. Who's coming out in the final?
Umalatov and C. I got Umalatov over this current, sometimes interested, sometimes engaged version of McDonald, and I do think Sadabusi is gonna be Carlos Leal Miranda.
Dissension, because yes, I agree that Rory had so little for Sadabusi that he resorted to takedowns that he couldn't land on Sadabusi. A guy who, you know, I could take Sadabusi down. Obviously, I'm being, whatever. Anyway, but Umalatov is just going to toss him around if that's the case. And I'm looking at Carlos Leal. Like, yeah, Carlos Leal had a weird whole situation there because he kind of made the playoffs because the guy he was supposed to fight missed weight, so he got 3 points. And also the Ray Cooper fight, which he styled on a really awkward, what the heck is wrong with Ray Cooper. So I'm going on the whole double Challenger Series appearance, 4 fights this year for Carlos Leal to get to the finals and surprise everybody. And Sadabusi will just be that one guy who will be in every PFL season until this company goes bankrupt next year. Like, just absolutely, Sadabusi is the mainstay of mainstays, that his record will just look like a Jackson Pollock painting with the reds and the greens, the grays and the oranges from all the weird stuff that happened in PFL for him.
I don't even care who makes it as long as it's Sabadu Sai, as long as him. And if we get, like, it depends on what sort of Christian Rory McDonald feels like Saturday is going to matter here. Is he going to be like meek, like Christian is like nice and gives to the homeless or something, or is he going to be like I'm going to protest outside the abortion clinic Christian?
Very different intensity there.
Very different Christians that we're talking about here. Like, if he's Christian with a bullhorn, oh, we got a problem. We got a problem. It's not up for you right now. If it's a Christian with a bullhorn, but if he's a Christian that's just like nice guy at the soup kitchen, all right, probably not making it to the finals. So, you know, that's all I got to say about that. All right, heavyweight, we got Ante Deleja, Renan Ferreira. And then we've got Dennis Goltsov. Yeah, I got that right. And Matthias Scheffel. Gentlemen, who makes it to the finals?
I think we get a finals rematch. Not that they were in the finals, but, you know, that they fought between Ante Deleja and Dennis Goltsov. And so it'll be between Goltsov and Sadabusi to be the most overdue final coronation moment, that they finally make a final after being in this thing, you know, for 3 years now. Yeah. And as bad as the bad half of PFL's heavyweight division is, and good gracious, is it bad? their top few heavyweights would slot right in the UFC just outside the top 15 or so. They're not terrible fighters, you know, like, I mean, look at Muhammad Usman now.
Yeah, okay, he lost in there. He lost to
bad.
Who did he get embarrassed by? Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. Anyway,
yeah.
It's while I'm riffing, you can look up who it was so we know. I'm really happy that Matthias Scheffel got in the playoffs, because he was really ripped off for having a head-to-head win over Bruno Capolosa, but he was left out because of the way the playoff standings are. Yes, head-to-heads matter, but in the event of a three-way tie, head-to-heads don't matter as much unless you beat every person that competes that you're tied with. So if it's a four-way tie and you only have a 2-fight regular season, how can that be possible? How can one fighter beat 3 opponents to break the head-to-head tie if there are only 2 fights happening? So that is an inherent issue that I don't want to keep whining about because I'm going to go on for hours. Dennis Goltsov is going to walk into a Krokopian head kick from Ante Delija in the finals, and we're going to go, yeah. Because otherwise, what we're going to have is a bunch of international fighters winning $1 million. How cool does it look like for PFL that they have a ton of Russians running the show, but they're not even brave enough to say we're going to let them be Russians? Like this guy Goltsov is nicknamed the Russian Bogatyr. So Russia
international Bogatyr.
Russia is all over, and
just,
you can't
just the Bogatyr.
You can't say it, sure. But multiple fighters, like remember, where's Omari Akhmedov from? Dagestan. He's in the finals. So the likelihood and possibility that a bunch of divisions are won by Russians, a company the PFL won't even say the country's name, is just, that is the most PFL-ian thing when they go, yay, a bunch of international fighters won. Crap.
And we'll pick up their purses in defiance of sanctions.
And how can... Thank you, Ben Duffy.
It's a good way to keep the money in the company, huh?
How can they get paid if we're sanctioning Russia?
They should make them walk out in like the old unified team, like Olympic uniforms that got busted. You remember after like the Soviet Union went down?
Yeah. Oh, man. All right.
By the way, Muhammad Usman lost in PFL to 40-year-old part-time fighter Brandon Sales, who had not fought in 3 years before that.
Oh, Brandon Sales. Brandon Sales didn't go far in PFL. Wow.
Now he ran into Goltsov.
Yeah, that's ouch, man. When you get drummed out of the playoffs or the season because of Goltsov last year. Yeah, so Ant, please carry on. Save us from this.
All right, well, let's talk about what's going down in San Diego this weekend. UFC is taking the show on the road. If I wasn't so busy with the family, I would make that drive. It's only like an hour and a half for me, but I'm not. I'll be watching it at home as Dominic Cruz, former bantamweight champion, considered by many to be the GOAT of the division, will be taking on Marlon Vera. That's a hell of a matchup right there. Let's briefly talk about our predictions for that. Who do you see coming out on top?
I am cautiously leaning towards this being a coming out moment for Vera, and I'm going to know within 90 seconds if I'm wrong, because if he's mystified by the movement that, yeah, Cruz isn't as nimble as he was, but he can still freeze people. If Cruz hits an easy knee tap in the first 90 seconds, I'm going to know, damn it, I am wrong. And I'm going to have to sit here and be wrong for 25 fucking minutes. But I do think Vera is going to be, it's just a changing of the guard moment. A little too big, a little too fast, a little too strong. If he does get taken down, a little too capable of taking care of himself down there. I do expect Vera to win a close competitive decision.
Am I way off when I look at Marlon Vera and I compare him to Pedro Munoz? Like, what if you took Pedro Munoz and made him better everywhere? Like, just like level up his striking a little bit, level up his power, not a ton, just marginally better. Boom, he's better getting up off his back. Boom, he's better, he's quicker. All of these things. That's when I see Marlon or when I see Chito Vera. I see he's better everywhere, but a similar style. You know, action, leg kicks, a lot of movement, a lot of footwork, making faces and enjoys getting hit, all those kinds of check marks. And I look at Dominic Cruz, who just beat Pedro Munoz. He didn't destroy him. Cruz did. I mean, he won the fight. I see this as he can get past the Munoz, like what do they say? That Pedro Munoz is the Wish version of Marlon Vera. So I'm thinking that it will just be that step. It's not a huge deal. Like, I would love to see if they fought each other. I would love to see how that would play out between Vera and Munoz. But I don't think they're going to, because they're different levels. I think Chito is just going to be too much, too fast. And, once he starts working on Cruz's leg, like, let's remember, Cruz's legs aren't his. They're like 3 or 4 people's legs. So it's not going to take a lot of him for his wheel to get starting to work a little funny, and suddenly his big footwork isn't there anymore. And Vera's coming with fire. for 5 rounds. And we know he can go 5 rounds hard because he just beat Rob Font, who I think Rob Font would handle Cruz. So by the MMA math properties that always work, give me Marlon Vera by decision.
As much as I want to see Dominic Cruz like put on one of his vintage like comeback performances and just, you know, and just style on somebody, Marlon Vera just is not the one that I see that as a possibility on. When you look at some of the, I'm gonna just run down a couple of the names that have defeated Marlon Vera. Jose Aldo, Song Yadong, John Lineker
at featherweight.
Yes.
Yeah. Like these are guys who hit hard.
Yeah.
These are guys who were able to meet Marlon Vera, who hits hard, who's relentless and aggressive, who were able to meet him in the middle, and they headbutted, and he was the one who fell at the end of the day. That's what I think. That's what I think is the power, the way you can beat Vera. Cruz doesn't have that style of fighting in his arsenal. He's not someone who's going to hit hard enough to like intimidate Vera and get his movement to stop. And you look at the guys who fight, who have like similar characteristics to Dominic Cruz as far as a lot of movement, more so technical strikers that touch you and try to lay on volume. Frankie Edgar, you saw what happened to him. Andre Ewell, like a guy who has good footwork and not necessarily a power striker. Guy likes to lay a lot of volume and is very technical with his striking. It didn't fare very well for him either. And Dominic Cruz fits more in that mold. Like this is, and especially when you're talking about the leg injuries, Jay, like, you know, the moment a Vera kick lands on one of the various cadaver tendons that are in Dominic Cruz, it's going to be a bad night. I mean, 5 rounds of that, I don't think it makes it that far, man. I think Dominic Cruz gets finished by the 4th. This is going to be one of those performances that's going to make us kind of sad, you know, but it's also the natural order of things. So the guard has to change at some point. Cruz can't be the best bantamweight in the world forever. And this is that moment where it's absolutely cemented that the dominance of Cruz has officially just ended, and we can see this guy as a full-time commentator, in my opinion.
I am very much looking forward to the conversation next week that we will absolutely have, audience. Get ready for it, of Dominic Cruz as he stacks up amongst the best bantamweights ever, because I think that is a real conversation that is worthy having, win or lose.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a good place to end this, fellas. Big shout out to Jay. Big shout out to Ben. Every week holding it down. Happy to see these faces. I'm still on my emotional high of being reunited, only for Jay to destroy that in 2 weeks because he has to selfishly do things for his personal life.
Yes.
So anyway, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Check out Ben and Jay's fight week coverage all over sherdog.com. And of course, the Twitter handles below for your enjoyment. So, remember, stay beautiful, stay positive, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.